The restaurant smelled like garlic bread and fresh tomato sauce, just like it did every evening. Maria wiped down table 7 for what felt like the 100th time that week. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, the kind you buy when comfort matters more than style. She'd been working at Romano's Italian restaurant for 3 years now, and honestly, she couldn't complain. The pay was decent, her boss was fair, and the customers were mostly kind. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and glanced at the clock. 6:30. The dinner rush would start any minute now. Already she could see couples walking past the window, checking the menu displayed outside. Friday nights were always busy, which meant good tips, but also sore legs by the end of her shift. "Maria, can you take table 3 when they arrive?" called out Tony, the owner. He was a stocky man in his 50s with a thick Italian accent that customers found charming. He'd owned this place for over 20 years, and it showed in every detail, from the checkered tablecloths to the family photos lining the walls. "Sure thing," she replied, grabbing a stack of menus. As she moved through the dining room, her path took her past the old piano tucked in the corner. It was an upright, probably from the 1970s, with scratches on its dark wood and keys that had yellowed with age. Someone had placed a small vase with fake flowers on top of it. Most days it just sat there, silent and forgotten. Sometimes a customer would sit down and play a few notes, usually Chopsticks or Heart and Soul, those songs everyone knows how to peck out with 2 fingers. Maria's hand brushed against the piano's side as she passed. She did this almost unconsciously now, a tiny gesture no one else noticed. It was like greeting an old friend you couldn't quite talk to anymore. The evening picked up quickly. Families filled the larger tables, couples claimed the intimate corner booths, and a group of college students laughed loudly near the window. Maria moved between them all, taking orders, delivering plates of steaming pasta, refilling wine glasses and clearing dishes. Her hands knew the rhythm of it all by heart. "How's everything tasting?" she asked a middle-aged couple at table 9. "Wonderful, dear. Just wonderful," the woman replied, her husband nodding enthusiastically with a mouthful of lasagna. Between orders, Maria found herself looking at the piano again. She couldn't help it. Some people looked at photographs of ex-lovers, or old vacation spots with that same mix of longing and sadness. For Maria, it was that instrument sitting 15 feet away. Nobody at Romano's knew about her past with music. Why would they? It wasn't something that came up naturally. When coworkers asked about her hobbies, she mentioned reading and hiking. When customers made small talk, they discussed the weather or local news. No one asked if she could play piano, and she certainly didn't volunteer the information. But there was a time when music was everything to her. As a kid, she'd started lessons at 7 years old. Her grandmother had insisted on it, scraping together money from her cleaning jobs to pay for weekly sessions with Mrs. Chen, a retired concert pianist who lived 3 blocks away. Maria could still remember the smell of Mrs. Chen's house, like old books and jasmine tea. Those lessons became the highlight of her week. While other kids played soccer or watched cartoons, Maria sat at Mrs. Chen's beautiful grand piano, learning scales and arpeggios, working through beginner books and gradually advancing to more complex pieces. Her small fingers stretched across the keys, building strength and precision. By the time she was 12, she was playing pieces that made her mother cry: Chopin, Beethoven, Debussy. The music flowed through her like a second language, one she understood better than words sometimes. Mrs. Chen would nod approvingly, her wrinkled hands demonstrating passages when Maria got stuck. "You have a gift," Mrs. Chen told her once. "Not just talent. Anyone can have talent. You have something deeper. You feel the music." Maria had dreamed of music school, maybe even performing someday. She practiced for hours after finishing homework, her family eating dinner to the soundtrack of classical music drifting from the living room. Then everything changed when she was 15. Her father lost his job at the manufacturing plant. Her grandmother got sick and needed expensive medications. Suddenly, money became tight, then tighter. Piano lessons were a luxury they couldn't afford anymore. Maria remembered the conversation with her mother, both of them crying in the kitchen. "It's just temporary," her mother had promised. Once things get better. But things didn't get better, not really. Her father found new work, but it paid less. Her grandmother's condition stabilized but required ongoing care. There was always something that needed the money more than piano lessons. Maria understood. She really did. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. Without lessons, without access to a good piano, her playing gradually faded. Her family's old keyboard wasn't the same. The touch was wrong, the sound flat and electronic. She tried to keep practicing, but it felt like trying to paint without proper colors. Eventually, she played less and less. Life moved on. High school, then community college, then work. The music became something she used to do, a chapter that had closed. Now at 26, she was a waitress who sometimes glanced at pianos in restaurant corners. "Order up," shouted Carlos from the kitchen. Maria snapped back to the present, grabbing the plates of chicken parmesan and hurrying them to table 5. The restaurant was fully packed now, every table occupied, conversations blending into a pleasant hum of activity. This was what Friday nights looked like at Romano's. She noticed a large party being seated in the back section. Birthday celebration, probably. There was a woman carrying a cake box and several people wearing party hats. Tony was setting up 2 tables together to accommodate everyone. As Maria delivered drinks to another table, she heard someone from the birthday party asking Tony a question. "Does that piano work? We were thinking of having someone play Happy Birthday." Tony glanced at the instrument. "It works, yeah. Tuned it last year. Anyone's welcome to play it." "Does anyone here know how?" the person asked. Maria felt her heart skip. She quickly looked down, focusing intently on wiping a nearby table that didn't really need wiping. Her pulse quickened in a way that felt both exciting and terrifying. Tony was scanning the room, probably thinking about which staff member might know piano. His eyes landed on Maria. "Please don't," she thought. "Please just let someone else handle it." But deep down, in a place she tried not to examine too closely, another voice whispered something different. A voice that remembered the feeling of keys. Beneath her fingers, the way music could fill a room and transform a moment into something magical. She kept her head down, polishing the same spot on the table over and over, waiting to see what would happen next. The restaurant noise continued around her, but suddenly it all felt very far away. In her mind, she could hear the opening notes of a piece she'd learned years ago, as clear as if someone were playing it right now. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the cleaning cloth. The birthday party was still discussing the piano. Tony was still looking around the room, and Maria stood frozen in that moment, caught between the person she'd become and the person she used to be, separated by nothing more than 15 feet of dining room floor and 3 years of silence. Tony walked over to the birthday party with his usual warm smile, the kind that made customers feel like family. Maria could hear bits of their conversation from where she stood, still pretending to clean that perfectly clean table. "Let me ask around," Tony said. "Maybe one of the staff knows a few songs." Maria's stomach did a little flip. She moved quickly to the kitchen, pushing through the swinging door like she had an urgent order to pick up. Carlos looked up from the grill, surprised to see her empty-handed. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah, fine, just checking on Table 12's order. Table 12 ordered 3 minutes ago, it'll be a while." "Right. Okay." Maria grabbed a pitcher of water she didn't need and headed back out. But Tony was already making his way toward her. There was no avoiding it now. "Maria, hey," he called out. "Quick question. You know how to play piano at all?" Her mouth went dry. She could lie. It would be so easy. Just shake her head, say no, and someone else could figure it out. Maybe one of the customers knew a few chords. Maybe they'd just sing without music, problem solved. I know a little bit," she heard herself say instead. Why did she say that? Her heart was pounding now. Tony's face lit up. "Really? That's great. There's a birthday party back there and they're hoping someone could play Happy Birthday. Would you mind? Just that one song. I'll comp your dinner tonight as a thank you." Maria looked past him at the birthday party. About 12 people, all dressed nicely, chatting and laughing. They seemed like good people, the kind who probably tipped well and said please and thank you. The birthday girl looked about 60, wearing a sparkly purple blouse and a small tiara someone had placed on her head as a joke. "I guess I could try," Maria said quietly. "Fantastic. You're a lifesaver." Tony patted her shoulder and headed back to greet new customers at the door. Maria stood there for a moment, the water pitcher still in her hand. What had she just agreed to? Her palms were already starting to sweat. It was just, "Happy birthday." She could do that. Anyone could do that. It wasn't like she was performing a concert. She set down the pitcher and took a deep breath. Then another. Her hands were shaking slightly and she pressed them against her apron to steady them. Rachel, another waitress, walked by balancing 3 plates. "Hey, I heard you're going to play piano. That's so cool. I didn't know you played." "It's just one simple song," Maria said, trying to sound casual. "Still, I can barely play my radio." "This should be fun." "Fun? Sure." That was one word for it. Maria made her way slowly toward the piano, weaving between tables. A few customers glanced up at her, then returned to their meals. They had no idea that her legs felt wobbly, or that her mind was racing through 100 different thoughts at once. When was the last time she'd touched a real piano? 2 years ago? 3? She'd walked past this one countless times but never sat down. Never let herself get that close. The birthday party noticed her approaching. "Oh, wonderful," said a woman with short gray hair. "Thank you so much for doing this. My sister will love it." "No problem," Maria managed to say. She reached the piano and stood in front of it for a moment. Up close, she could see more details. Water rings on the top where someone had set drinks. A small crack in one of the white keys. Music sheets tucked inside the bench, probably left by previous players. Maria pulled out the bench. It scraped against the floor with a sound that made her wince. She sat down slowly, adjusting her position like she was sitting on something fragile. The seat was lower than she remembered pianos being, or maybe she'd grown taller since her last lesson. Her hands hovered over the keys. They looked the same as every piano she'd ever played, and yet completely different. Foreign and familiar at the same time. Behind her, she could hear the birthday party getting ready. Someone was lighting candles on a cake. Others were pulling out phones to record the moment. "Whenever you're ready," someone called out softly. Maria placed her fingers on the keys. The ivory was cool under her touch, smooth and solid. Just feeling them brought back a rush of memory so strong she almost gasped. Mrs. Chen's voice. "Curved fingers like you're holding a ball." "That's it." She pressed down gently on middle C. The note rang out, clear and true. Then D, then E. The piano was in tune. It had a nice tone, actually, warm and full despite its age. Happy birthday wasn't complicated. She knew that. 4 simple phrases, basic melody, nothing fancy. She could play it with one finger if she wanted to, but her hands had other ideas. Almost automatically, her left hand found the bass notes, setting up a simple accompaniment. Her right hand began the melody. Not as single notes, but with gentle harmonies added in. It wasn't conscious. Her fingers just remembered things her brain had forgotten. "Happy birthday to you." The party started singing along, their voices blending with the piano. Maria kept playing, her touch light and careful. She added a small flourish at the end of the second line. Nothing dramatic, just a tiny run of notes that connected the phrases smoothly. She wasn't thinking anymore. Her hands were just moving, finding notes, creating sounds. The nervous energy in her chest started transforming into something else, something that felt like coming home after a very long trip. "Happy birthday, dear Catherine." The birthday girl, Catherine, was beaming, her hands clasped together. The candlelight flickered across her face and several people had tears in their eyes. Not because the song was fancy or complicated, but because these moments, these simple celebrations, they mattered. "Happy birthday to you." Maria played the final chord and lifted her hands from the keys. The party erupted in applause and cheers, mostly for Catherine, but some glances came Maria's way too. "That was beautiful," the gray-haired woman exclaimed. "You play so well." "Thank you," Maria said quietly, starting to stand up, but her hands were still on the keys. She could feel them there, warm now from playing, familiar despite the years apart, and something inside her chest was pulling tight, like a string that had been wound up for too long, ready to snap or finally let loose. The party was cutting the cake now, passing out plates, singing and joking. They'd moved on from the piano moment, absorbed in their celebration. Maria should get up. She had tables to check on, drinks to refill. Her section was busy tonight, but she stayed sitting, her fingers resting on the keys, feeling the smooth surface, remembering. There was a piece she used to play, one of her favorites. She'd spent months learning it when she was 14, practicing until she could play it with her eyes closed. It was called Clair de Lune, Moonlight, by a French composer whose name meant of the bush. Mrs. Chen had given it to her as a challenge, saying she was ready for something with real emotion in it. Maria's fingers found the opening notes. Soft, gentle, like raindrops. She didn't plan to play it. She wasn't even sure she remembered it fully, but once she started, the music just flowed. The notes came back to her like words to a song she'd sung 1,000 times. Her right hand climbed up the keyboard while her left provided the foundation underneath. The melody was dreamy and sad and beautiful all at once. Around her, something was changing. The restaurant noise was fading, not because it actually got quieter, but because people were stopping to listen. The music spread through Romano's like water flowing into every corner of the room. Maria's fingers danced across the keys, moving through passages she thought she'd forgotten, but her hands remembered everything. Every note, every pause, every delicate touch that made the piece breathe and live. At table 14, a man lifted his fork halfway to his mouth and stopped. His wife looked up from her phone, suddenly aware of something beautiful happening. The couple at table 9, who'd been having a quiet argument about whose turn it was to pick up their daughter, both fell silent. Maria barely noticed. She was lost somewhere else now, in a place between memory and present moment. The restaurant disappeared. The checkered tablecloths, the smell of marinara sauce, the clinking of silverware, all of it faded away. There was only the piano and the music, and her hands creating something that felt bigger than herself. Her fingers climbed higher on the keyboard, the melody growing more intense. This was the part she'd struggled with as a teenager, where the right hand had to stretch across octaves while the left kept the rhythm steady. Mrs. Chen had made her practice it slowly, one hand at a time until it became natural. Don't rush it, Mrs. Chen's voice echoed in her memory. Let each note have its space. Music needs room to breathe. Maria let the notes breathe now. She played with the kind of confidence that only comes from hours and hours of practice, from muscle memory so deep it lives in your bones. The music swelled and softened, painting pictures in sound. Moonlight on water, the quiet sadness of beautiful things that don't last forever. Rachel stood frozen near the kitchen door, a tray of dirty dishes in her hands, staring at Maria like she'd never seen her before. Carlos had come out from behind the grill, wiping his hands on his apron, his mouth slightly open. Even Tony had stopped seating new customers and was watching from near the entrance. The birthday party had gone completely still. Catherine, the birthday girl, had tears running down her cheeks, though she was smiling. Her sister reached over and squeezed her hand. Someone had been recording video on their phone for the birthday song and was still recording now, the camera capturing something nobody had expected. Table by table, conversation stopped. A businessman who'd been typing away on his laptop paused, his fingers hovering over the keys. A family with 3 young children who'd been noisy and energetic all evening sat quietly. Even the smallest child, maybe 4 years old, seemed mesmerized by the sound filling the air. Maria's whole body moved with the music now. Her shoulders swayed slightly. Her foot pressed the sustain pedal at exactly the right moments, letting notes blend and overlap like colors mixing on a canvas. This was the part she'd always loved, where the melody descended like falling leaves, each note touching the one before it. She poured everything into it, all the years of missing this. All the times she'd walked past pianos and felt that ache in her chest. All the dreams she'd carefully packed away and tried not to think about. It came out now in cascading runs and gentle chords that seemed to hold entire universes of feeling. The piece built toward its most powerful section. Her left hand jumped across the bass notes while her right hand created the melody above, strong and clear. This was where you had to commit, Mrs. Chen had taught her. No hesitation, no holding back. Let the music be what it needs to be. Maria didn't hold back. The sound filled every inch of Romano's, reaching into corners and hearts. Some people had stopped eating entirely, their forks resting on their plates. Others had closed their eyes just listening. A woman at table 6 was crying, though she couldn't have explained why. Then came the final section where the music softened again, becoming delicate and distant, like something slipping away. Maria's touch became lighter, more careful. The notes grew quieter, each one precious. Her hands knew exactly how much pressure to use, how to make the piano whisper instead of speak. She played the last few measures with her eyes closed, feeling the music more than thinking about it. The final notes hung in the air like stars, clear and pure and achingly beautiful. Then her hands lifted and there was silence. Complete, total silence. Maria's eyes opened slowly. For a second, she didn't remember where she was. The restaurant came back into focus gradually. The tables. The people. The walls covered in family photos. She blinked, suddenly aware of her surroundings again, like waking up from a very deep dream. Then the applause started. It wasn't polite restaurant clapping. It was the kind of applause you'd hear at a concert hall. People stood up from their tables all across the room, clapping and cheering. The businessman near the window. The family with 3 kids. The elderly couple who'd been eating in comfortable silence. The entire birthday party. Everyone. Maria sat frozen on the piano bench, her hands still hovering over the keys. Her face felt hot. Her heart was pounding, but differently than before. Not from nervousness now. From something else. Something that felt like fear and joy and surprise all mixed together. "Oh my God," Rachel shouted from across the room. "Maria, I had no idea." Tony was walking toward her, shaking his head in disbelief. 3 years, he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. 3 years you've been working here and you never said anything? The people at the birthday party were on their feet, clapping the hardest of anyone. Catherine was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, still smiling. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard," she called out. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Other customers were pulling out their phones now, some looking at videos they'd just recorded, others seeming to search for information. The businessman had already typed something into Google. "I think that was Debussy," he told his dinner companion. "Clair de Lune. It's one of the most famous piano pieces ever written." Maria finally stood up from the bench on shaky legs. Her co-workers were gathering around her. Rachel grabbed her arm. "How do you know how to play like that? That was incredible. I used to take lessons," Maria managed to say. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. "A long time ago, lessons?" Carlos laughed. "That wasn't lessons. That was like professional level. That was concert hall stuff." More customers were approaching now, wanting to talk to her. An older gentleman with kind eyes reached out to shake her hand. "Young lady, that was extraordinary. Simply extraordinary. I've been going to piano recitals for 40 years, and what you just played was as good as anything I've heard." "Where did you study?" asked a woman in a business suit. "Have you performed professionally?" Someone else chimed in. The questions came fast, overlapping each other. Maria felt overwhelmed, like she was standing in the middle of a wave that kept getting bigger. She looked around the restaurant, seeing dozens of faces looking back at her. Curious faces, impressed faces, friendly faces. Tony gently guided people back. Okay, give her some space. Let the girl breathe." He turned to Maria with a huge grin. "But seriously, we're going to talk about this." That was something special. A man in an expensive suit was making his way through the crowd. He had gray hair and wore glasses, looking distinguished and purposeful. He walked right up to Maria and extended a business card. "I'm David Chen," he said. "I'm a music producer here in the city. I'd love to talk to you about your playing. Do you have representation?" Maria stared at the card in her hand like it was written in a foreign language. "Representation? What did that even mean? No, I'm just a waitress," she said. David smiled. "You're not just anything. What I heard just now, that's a gift. A real gift. Would you be willing to meet sometime and talk about possibilities?" Before Maria could answer, someone from the birthday party called out, "Can you play another song?" "Please," other customers joined in. "Yes, please. One more." That was amazing. Maria looked around at all the faces waiting for her response. Her throat felt tight. Part of her wanted to sit back down and play everything she'd ever learned. The other part wanted to run straight to the kitchen and hide behind the industrial dishwasher until everyone forgot this had happened. "I should really get back to work," she said quietly, clutching the business card. "My tables." "Your tables are fine," Tony interrupted, his voice warm. "Play one more, please. I think everyone here would love to hear it." There was something in his expression that made Maria pause. It wasn't just his boss face, the one he used when asking her to cover an extra shift. This was different. He looked almost proud, like a parent watching their kid do something unexpected and wonderful. The restaurant was still watching her, waiting. The air felt electric with possibility. "Okay," she heard herself say. "One more." The applause started again before she even sat back down. Maria returned to the piano bench, her legs still trembling slightly. She tucked the business card into her apron pocket and placed her hands back on the keys. What should she play? Her mind raced through pieces she used to know. Something cheerful maybe after that emotional one, something that would make people smile instead of cry. Her fingers found the opening notes of a lively piece by Mozart, light and bouncing, full of joy and energy. It was like the music was dancing, playful and bright. She'd performed this at a recital when she was 13, wearing a navy blue dress her mother had sewn by hand. The mood in the restaurant shifted immediately. People started smiling, tapping their feet. The piece had that effect. It was impossible to stay still while listening to it. Maria felt herself relaxing as she played, her confidence growing with each measure. A little girl from the family with 3 kids wiggled out of her chair and started twirling near her table, her arms spread wide like she was trying to catch the music. Her parents laughed, pulling out their phones to record her impromptu dance. Other diners chuckled and clapped along. Maria played faster, her fingers flying across the keys. This was the technical part, the section that used to make her practice for hours. But it felt effortless now, like her hands were simply having a conversation with the piano, both of them old friends catching up after years apart. When she finished with a flourish, the restaurant erupted again. The little girl took a bow, which made everyone laugh and clap even harder. Maria couldn't help but smile, a real genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Brava!" shouted someone from the back. Tony was beaming. Several customers were standing again. The businessman near the window was typing furiously on his phone. Maria would later learn he was posting about the experience on social media, complete with video clips in the restaurant's location. As Maria stood up from the piano this time, Rachel rushed over and hugged her. "That was so fun. You're like a completely different person when you play. I've never seen you so alive." The words hit Maria harder than Rachel probably intended. Alive. Was that what this feeling was? This buzzing energy running through her veins? This lightness in her chest despite her racing heart? Catherine from the birthday party approached, moving slower than the others, her hand on her sister's arm for support. "My dear," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm 73 years old today. I've heard a lot of music in my life. But what you played tonight, that first piece, it reminded me why beautiful things matter. Thank you for the best birthday gift I could have asked for." Maria felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "Thank you. That means a lot." "Don't stop playing," Catherine added, squeezing Maria's hand. "Whatever happened before that made you stop, don't let it win. You have something too special to keep hidden." As the birthday party gathered their things to leave, the restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm. People went back to their meals, though the energy in the room felt different now. Lighter somehow. More alive, just like Rachel had said. Maria returned to her duties, but everything felt surreal. She refilled water glasses and cleared plates, but her mind was somewhere else. Customers kept stopping her to compliment her playing. Tips were suddenly much bigger than usual. One couple left $50 on a $30 check with a note that said, "For the music, please keep playing." During a brief, quiet moment, Maria pulled out the business card from her apron pocket. David Chen, music producer. There was a phone number, an email address, and an office address downtown. The card felt heavy in her hand, weighted with possibility. Carlos came out from the kitchen during his break and sat at the counter near where Maria was rolling silverware into napkins. "So, secret piano genius, huh?" he said with a grin. "What other surprises you got hidden?" Maria laughed. "That's it, I promise. No secret juggling skills or anything. But seriously," Carlos continued, his tone becoming more genuine, "that was really something. Why don't you do something with it? You know, professionally?" It was the same question the music producer had implied. The same question Maria had been asking herself for years. Usually at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. "It's complicated," she said. Which was the truth, but also not the whole truth. "Life's complicated," Carlos shrugged. "Doesn't mean we can't do the things we love." After he went back to the kitchen, Maria stood there thinking. She'd convinced herself years ago that the door to music had closed, That it was too late, she was too old, too far behind, too ordinary. She had bills to pay and responsibilities and a life that didn't include concert halls or recording studios. But her hands still remembered. Her heart still responded to the music like it always had. And tonight, for those few minutes at the piano, she hadn't felt ordinary at all. Tony found her near the end of her shift. "Maria, can we talk for a minute?" They sat at one of the empty tables. The restaurant was closing up, most customers already gone. Rachel was counting her tips at the counter. Carlos was cleaning the kitchen. "I had an idea," Tony said, leaning forward. "What if we made this a regular thing? Friday and Saturday nights, you play piano for an hour or two during dinner service. I'll pay you extra, on top of your regular wages. We could advertise it, make it special. Live music brings people in." Maria's first instinct was to say no, to stick with what was safe and familiar, but Catherine's words echoed in her mind. "Don't let it win. Can I think about it?" She asked. "Of course. Take your time," Tony smiled. "But I want you to know what you did tonight. It changed the whole atmosphere. People will remember this evening." That's rare. On her way home that night, Maria's phone started buzzing. Notifications from social media platforms she barely used. Someone had tagged her in a video. Then another person. Then another. The videos were spreading, shared and reshared, comments piling up underneath. "Who is this waitress? She's incredible. I need the full story behind this." This gave me chills. Pure talent. Romano's Italian restaurant just became my new favorite place. Maria sat in her old car in the parking lot, scrolling through the comments, watching the view counts climb higher and higher. 3,000 views. 5,000. 10,000. The numbers kept growing even as she watched. Her phone rang, startling her. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello." "Hi, is this Maria?" The pianist from Romano's? A woman's voice, professional and excited. "My name is Jennifer Wu. I'm a reporter for the local news. We'd love to do a story about you and your performance tonight. It's going viral online. Would you be willing to do an interview?" Maria sat in stunned silence. "Viral interview?" This was all happening too fast. I need to think about it," she managed to say. "Of course. Here's my number. Please call me back when you're ready. This is a beautiful story and people are really responding to it." After hanging up, Maria just sat there, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Her whole life she'd been invisible. The quiet girl in the back of the class. The reliable waitress nobody noticed. The person who blended into the background. Now suddenly people were seeing her. Really seeing her. And it was terrifying and thrilling all at once. Maria barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces in the restaurant. Heard the applause. Felt the keys under her fingers. Her phone kept buzzing with notifications until she finally turned it off and buried it under her pillow. By morning, the videos had been viewed over 100,000 times. Someone had created a compilation with the title, "Waitress's Hidden Talent Will Make You Cry." Another version was called, "When the Quiet Girl Finally Gets Her Moment." The comment section was full of people sharing their own stories about abandoned dreams and hidden talents. Maria made coffee and sat at her small kitchen table, staring at David Chen's business card. Next to it was a slip of paper with the reporter's phone number. Two paths, both leading somewhere she'd never imagined going. Her phone rang again. This time it was her mother. "Mija, Mrs. Rodriguez just showed me a video. Is that really you? Playing piano at the restaurant?" "Yeah, Mom, it's me." "But how? When?" Her mother's voice was full of confusion and wonder. "You haven't played in years. I thought you'd forgotten." "I didn't forget," Maria said softly. "I just stopped." There was a long pause. Then her mother said something that surprised her. "I'm sorry we couldn't keep paying for your lessons. I've always felt guilty about that." "Mom, don't. You had to make hard choices." "I understood. But maybe I should have tried harder." "You were so good, baby. Even back then you were so good." Her mother's voice cracked slightly. "Mrs. Chen called me once, maybe a year after you stopped. She said you had real potential, that you could have gone far if you'd kept training." Maria felt a lump forming in her throat. She'd never known about that call. "What did you tell her?" she asked. "I told her life doesn't always work out the way we plan. But watching that video this morning, seeing how happy you looked while playing, I wonder if I was wrong. Maybe it's not too late." After hanging up, Maria sat for a long time just thinking. She thought about Mrs. Chen and those lessons in the house that smelled like jasmine tea. About her grandmother working cleaning jobs to pay for something she believed mattered. About all the years she'd walked past pianos and felt that ache. She picked up her phone and called the number on David Chen's card. It rang 3 times before a voice answered. "This is David." "Hi, this is Maria. From Romano's restaurant. You gave me your card last night, Maria." "I'm so glad you called. I've been watching those videos all morning. The response is incredible. Have you thought about what I mentioned?" They talked for almost an hour. David explained that he worked with emerging artists, helping them find opportunities and develop their careers. He wasn't promising anything huge or immediate, but he saw potential. He wanted to set up a proper audition, maybe help her make some recordings, see where things could go. "I have to be honest with you," Maria said. "I haven't had formal training in over 10 years. I'm not current with anything. I'm just a waitress who used to take lessons." "Maria," David said gently, "I've been in this business for 25 years. What you played last night wasn't just technical skill. It was artistry. It was emotional truth. That's something you can't teach. Yes, you might need to brush up on some things, but the foundation is there. The gift is there." After the call, Maria contacted the reporter and agreed to a short interview. Then she called Tony and told him yes, she would play at the restaurant on weekends. Her hands were shaking as she made each call, but they were good shakes. Nervous but excited shakes. The news segment aired 3 days later. It was only 4 minutes long, but it told the story simply and well. Maria talking about her childhood lessons, the years away from music, the unexpected moment at the piano. They included clips from the viral videos and interviewed Catherine from the birthday party, who spoke beautifully about the power of art to transform ordinary moments into something memorable. The segment ended with the reporter asking Maria what advice she'd give to people who'd given up on their dreams. Maria had thought carefully about her answer. "I think sometimes life makes us put things aside. And that's okay. We do what we need to do to survive, to take care of our families, to get by. But those dreams don't really die, they wait. And if you get a chance to pick them back up, even if it's scary, even if you think it's too late, maybe take that chance. Because the world needs more beauty in it, and maybe you're the one who's supposed to create it." The following Friday, Romano's was packed. People had made reservations weeks in advance just to hear Maria play. Tony had to turn away walk-ins. He'd set up the piano area with better lighting and moved some tables to create a small performance space. Maria wore a simple black dress she'd bought specially for the occasion. Her heart pounded as she walked to the piano at 7 o'clock, but it was a different kind of nervousness now. The kind performers feel, the kind that comes with purpose. She played for an hour and a half with short breaks between pieces. Classical compositions she'd learned as a teenager. A few contemporary songs she'd taught herself by ear. Each piece felt like introducing the audience to a different part of herself she'd kept hidden for too long. Rachel worked Maria's tables that night, refusing to take any tips. "This is your night," she'd insisted. "I'm just happy to be part of it." Between sets, people approached Maria to thank her. Some shared their own stories of abandoned passions. A middle-aged man told her he used to paint but hadn't picked up a brush in 15 years. "I'm going to start again," he said. "Watching you made me realize I've been making excuses." An elderly woman said she'd given up violin decades ago after her teacher told her she'd never be good enough. "But hearing you tonight, seeing how much joy you have when you play, it made me think maybe being good enough isn't the point. Maybe it's just about the music itself." David Chen came that night too, bringing a colleague who recorded several pieces. "Just for our records," he explained. "So we have professional audio to work with." The weeks that followed brought more changes than Maria could have imagined. David connected her with a local music school that needed piano instructors. She started teaching 3 mornings a week, working with kids who reminded her of her younger self. Eager, talented, full of dreams, she kept her waitressing job but reduced her hours. The restaurant gig had become permanent, with Maria playing every Friday and Saturday night to full houses. Tony raised her pay and even gave her a percentage of the increased revenue. "Fair is fair," he said. "People are coming because of you." 3 months after that first viral night, Maria performed her first real concert at a small community theater. Only 200 seats, but every single one was filled. Her mother sat in the front row, crying through the entire performance. Mrs. Chen came too, traveling from across town, looking older but still sharp-eyed and critical. After the concert, Mrs. Chen hugged her tightly. You found your way back, she whispered. I always knew you would.